Yes, thank you. Thank you so thank you. Greetings once again. And we want to thank God for today, yet another day. And having brought us this far, we also want to thank you for the singing. Truly, singing is uplifting when praise and honor and glory is given to God. I want to welcome us to today's session. I hope we work through the time that we have. Because today have slightly more slides, but not more than 40. So I'm hoping that we can work through that. Okay, I'm going to pray and then we begin. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for the blessings of life. We thank you for the strength given us and the will and the power to accomplish that which is good through us. And that also that your strength may be upon us as you continue to lead us in our separate ways, even as we continue to work in your vineyard. May you strengthen us, give us the Holy Spirit's wisdom and understanding, that in all that you do and encounter with, we may always give glory to your name. This time, as we seek for matters of health, we pray and take us through the session and even afterwards. For this is our prayer. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you. I don't know, and I hope presumably today the network will not delay. I rather somewhat yesterday we had issues with it. Yes, okay. I think we're good. Yes, so yesterday we tackled, of course, for the last 2 days we handled diabetes, and then we were sharing at length, really, the extent to which I should say, number one, we have suffered, especially in relation to that particular condition, which is diabetes, but generally also in terms of awareness, and which we have been crippled. Actually, we've been crippled for a very long time, and the the lengths that myself have seen through my studies and also through other people's work of study and research, I've come to realize that really the devil is working through a lot, through a lot, and we might not think of ourselves sufficient enough to really face him as it is, but I trust that God's leading is pretty much opportune in terms of providence, that in our way of life, in our walk of life, we are being led by God as long as we trust in Him. As long as we trust in Him, so we have nothing to fear for the future except that we forget how God has led us in the past. That is very important. That is very important. So we might have to come to a point where we think of ourselves, really, then how are we going to work and eat and do what we really need to do? But one thing we need to also understand is that this world is really not our home. It's not our home. So we can but live in it, through it, with the best, in terms, the best of knowledge that God has granted us, and that is actually what will ensure not just quantity in terms of life, but quality. It's good to have quality life. Can be out of a short period of time, but in itself you have greater impact. You have had greater impact. And one of the presentations which I have not done and normally I do search, of course, in regards to health, is um, that the coordination that we have with our minds, body, and spirit. Yeah. Body, mind, spirit, and soul, and our understanding that we have in all those different faculties that we have there. And we come to a point where we see that human beings are a unique species because we get to live. We not only have consciousness, yes, that means our spirit, um, but we have a physical essence. We have a physical essence that we manifest in this world. That means that we affect time and space and matter um, at a particular given unit of how should I put it, of existence, I should say. Yes, but we see someone like God. God Himself exists outside time, space, and matter. He's not bound by those, but we human beings are bound by touch, and we are just not bound by space, time, matter, but we are also bound in bodies. Yeah, when you don't exist in your body, you cease to become human. When God was creating man, he said he fashioned him out of the dust of the ground and then breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Then man became a living soul. So we have the breath of God and we have the dust of the ground which forms now man. So the only place aside from this earth that we get to live in is in our bodies. And what affects the environment in turn affects our bodies, and what affects our bodies in turn affects our entire life and our entire being here on earth. So that is why it's very important to understand how, perhaps say, the mechanisms that the devil is using to get through, number one, our environment, because he affects it on us. One of the very major changes that the devil, of course, did in terms of the environment was with the innovation of technology and the innovation of the light bulb, which is a good innovation, yes, brought up various numerous opportunities, but in itself, man was initially working with the sun in terms of times and seasons, and that's how actually God created it. Yes. So when we had sunset, it meant that we were now going into a period of rest and a period of sleep, and then we had we had sun, yeah, and then sunrise. We have a period of activity and waking up, and our hormones were somewhat balanced in that sense. But right now, because we have the light, our bodies have somewhat adjusted, even in terms of the hormonal rhythms, that we now have our brains to think that we can sleep, that our times for sleep is 10, it's 11, it's 12. But initially, we had our times for sleep close to 7, 8. People would eat at around 6 with the lights that they were there. The fires that were there, and they eat around 6, 7. By 8, people are asleep, and by 5, 6, people are up and awake by dawn. So that's how it was. But because we have what we are having here, so also part of what we're studying in terms of health affects our bodies here, affects our bodies. So it is important to in such aspects of life, it is good to have awareness to really understand which point that the devil is actively working to make sure he sabotages the natural working of the system. And he has done so, and he has ultimately come to the point where it is the final platform and ground for the final, which is the mind. And that is actually where he has now finally settled, which if things continue the way they are, we might not really have to know the difference between what is real and what is not. Yeah. And we thank God because of the truth and the moral law. We know what is absolute. But right now, even in the West, we have that which has been and still is and will be absolute is being grown into relativism. Yeah. So the absolutes are no longer the absolutes are no longer absolute. They're now relative, and this comes out of situational ethics and reason, and logical whatever in terms of situations that has been given by man to define and explain a lot of things that are happening. And so, man, when things should appear white and black, they're appearing gray. And so that gray area gives some, if not many, a sense of comfort, even if it is in pain or if it is in hardship or difficulty. One that man knows that truly, if I go down this road, I know I'm going to suffer. But in a sense, we have some false sense of security in it. Yes, and that is one of the things that the devil has managed, which even though we come to a point where we have to enlighten people, we really have to depend on the power of the Holy Spirit to get people up that they have to see this and they have to see that and they have to see that. That is why one of the songs that we have in the hymnal, it should be song 326. It says, illumine my eyes, yeah? That God should illumine our eyes. And our eyes just not see visually, but our minds. That is where greatly we need illumination to understand these things. Okay, now, so today we are going to our last session, which is high blood pressure or hypertension, and that is what we're going to have to share on today. And so I pray that I didn't do the collectives on the videos. Also, if you would have done the videos again, our time would have gone. But we can work with this and then we see how they're done. Okay, so we can go down. So we want to now take a look at hypertension. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, I'm seeing there's I don't know. We'll click it again. I don't know whether the font should be black or white. Okay, yes. Yes, so statistically, we have 600 million people worldwide who suffer hypertension, hypertensive conditions. And out of 300 million, 600 million, 3 million die yearly. Statistically, 3 million die yearly. And we have that as part of what we should understand, of course, in terms of statistics. Myself, having studied statistics in campus, I have some statistical inclinations in terms of even when it comes to health. Because this one, you see, facts with numbers, as long as they've been done right, they don't lie. Really, they don't lie. And you will come to a point where now you see, if you go down, let's just go down the slides. Yes, just down again. Okay, so people with hypertension, the point there is for all who have hypertension, or rather, all who suffer the condition or are predisposed to the condition, half of them do not know. That's another point which is statistically proven. Half do not know, yes. And then click it again. And then an eighth have it under control. So you can look at that in terms of statistics and the numbers, yeah. So out of the 600 million, half of them do not know. And by the way, this is a condition which many refer to as a silent killer, because someone will never truly know that they suffer hypertension, until later, a time when things have now come to not so much sustainable levels, yeah, is when someone is alarmed that truly they have to work out their cases of hypertension, their high blood pressure. So that is why it's termed as a silent killer. The next slide. The next slide. We now want to see, like, is elevated high blood pressure of much significance? Is it truly what we should one of the things which you should take much consideration as we move forward? Yeah, so you can click it again 3 times. So firstly, we have number 1, it has 8 times the risk of stroke, yeah. Also, it has 3 times the risk of heart attack and 5 times the risk of heart failure. And this actually has been proven. This one has been proven, and in a sense, when anyone has to handle cases of hypertension, we have to be really careful, because this one has brought what you see on the screen. Those cases have been brought mainly because of the pressure. Hopefully, we can look into that, of course, today. Those of whom have suffered, strokes and suffered heart attacks and heart failures, this one has been brought highly with the predisposition to high blood pressure. So that is what it means. That the risk of those who are going to suffer stroke coming from a condition to do with the stomach or some other part of the body is not high compared to what is there in terms of high blood pressure. And that is why it should really be part of what human beings should consider. The next slide. It's very important. Yeah. Yes. Here we had said it is a silent killer. Yeah. Here it said it's a silent killer. It is true. It is true, really, because in a sense it does not give you warning. It does not give you a warning. It when it comes, and it either comes in form of a heart attack, a heart failure, or a stroke, and then that's it. You're done. Because what happens is, most often when you have too much of pressure for the vessels and the veins and the arteries, it so happens that even some burst within your systems, and if it so does, let's say in your brain, then you suffer stroke. And in this case, many who have prevalence in terms of this condition, yeah, pressure all the time, pressure all the time. These are the things that, especially when someone just hears the word pressure, yeah, it already has effects in the system. For someone who has been suffering pressure, then all along, maybe you come across by them, and then you meet with them, and then you just hear, or maybe you're in a vehicle, yes, or you're in a bus, or you're in a train, or you're in an aeroplane, and then you hear someone says, because the two of them have the two conditions, yeah, diabetes and pressure. When you hear someone who has this, when they suffer an attack, it's very serious. Yeah, so you just hear that someone says, "Oh, I have pressure." Someone says, "So and so has pressure." In itself, it means that they're very delicate, that anything can happen anytime, and that is one of the greatest undoing of, in terms of, let's say, ignorance on how we can best handle pressure. Yes. So let's go to the next slide. Yes, press again. Okay. Press it one more time. Yes. Thank you. So that here's the question you're asking ourselves. Yeah. So what is high blood pressure? And the best definition is just what is there on the screen. I think there's nothing better than what you're seeing. Ideal. Down there we have ideal. So the ideal means it should be less than 120 over the least should be 60, the way it is written there, but it should be 120 over 80. Yes, 120 over 80. That means the threshold should not surpass. You see, on the higher part it's 140. On the higher part, yeah, it should be 140. That means if you have to pass the threshold in terms of that is now systolic, then the downer one, the lower one should be diastolic. Yes. So you have the systolic going up to 140. If you get to 140, that means you have high blood pressure. Yeah. And then if your diastolic gets to 90, it means you also have high blood pressure. In other words, that's how it operates. Then you can work with a plus or minus 10 with regards to the threshold where it should be 120 systolic. And 120 would mean that you can have an allowance of 10, which is 130. 130 still you're a bit normal. It varies, yeah. Then you have minus 121 minus 10, you get 110. So when you begin 110 to 130, if you range between that, it's safe. In other words, yeah, you are safe in a way. But normally, of course, when you go for these pressure machines, I should say, for those who have been measured or some who have bought and they have it in their homes, there's no harm. You can, of course, I know places where we've already done export and we've done pressure machines. Normally, it's not good to just work one measurement. Like you just go sit down and then you do one measurement for this part, and then you now, if it has spiked up to 150 over maybe say 90, and then you're saying, oh, this is high blood pressure. No, normally, when people are being measured, when it's time to measure their pressure, the blood pressure, most of them spike during that time when you place the machine in their arms, and then the machine presses against them. So normally there is a panic, and when you have a panic, the pressure begins to rise. In a sense, the blood will run faster. In other words, and normally it does so because it has to work to bring the body back. Yeah, the blood has to work through the hormones to bring the body back to relaxation. So normally you can do two measurements and then you get an average. Yeah, you see where someone lies. But now when you do two measurements of the pressure and you find that it's lying through the same, if it is 140, it's 141, 142. You do the second one, you say 141, 142. You can now confirm it with the third one. So you tell the patient to just sit, have them sit on a chair where if they put out their arm, preferably on a table, it lies directly horizontal with their heart. Yeah. So if they put their arm on top of a table and they have sat on a chair, their arm is close to the same level where their heart is. Yeah. Then you now just tell them to relax. They have to relax, and then you tell them to now you're going to take their measurement, the pressure. Then normally when you take their pressure, if you're the one taking their pressure, just note it down somewhere, or if you note it by yourself, that is fine. That means you're not recording anywhere else, but you just measure by yourself, and then you who is doing the measurement, you don't panic. Yeah, even if the pressure has gone to 180, yeah, you can be taking someone's measurement, and the one taking the measurement is there and he's saying, hey, 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 what I did. Wait, this is so serious. This is so serious. I mean, your pressure is 180. How did you? The patient itself can even panic there and collapse more often. Yeah. So it is advisable that when you're taking the pressure of the one who is maybe say sick, you might not know even if they're sick, yeah, but you are taking their pressure. Number one, you yourself, you have to be cool and calm, and the patient has to be cool and calm also. This also would mean you don't engage them into too much talk or laughter, in a sense, but let them just relax and be themselves normally how they would be in their own environment, calmly. Yeah, that is best advisable, so that when you work with them, you don't end up being a causative agent or a provocative cause. Yeah, in their spike, of course, also. That we've seen many a times. Of course, someone might not even be suffering out of it, but they have problems. They have problems with it. So now high blood pressure there now would mean the way it has just been, I've just said it. It passes the threshold of 140. That is really now you have that means now you have acute. Yeah, you have acute. The measurement there is now acute. When you go to let's say 170, 180, some even go to 200. That is severe. That is really severe. Yeah, that is severe high hypertension, and that would mean they really need attention, pretty much, very, very, very seriously. And the way I said it, I think I mentioned it yesterday. This is what happens. Yeah, you have your vessels and you have your heart. You have your vessels and you have your heart. So what you should be doing is making sure that these two because the vessels are just an extension of the heart, by the way. The vessels are just an extension of the heart. It's like you have the skin. The skin is an organ, beginning from the head down to the foot. So no one should tell you that, oh, the hand down there, I don't know, is different from the skin. That, of course, we have difference, yes. Like a good example is your nails. Your nails is made up of the same material as your skin, only that your nails is hardened, yeah, out of keratin, yes. But your skin on this other is softened, still made of the same, but it's very soft, and it has a lot of melanin. So in your heart and your vessels, they have to work in correlation. They have to work in correlation. But now, I mentioned yesterday, when you have high amounts of cholesterol, it tends to lessen the diameter. Yes. And by so lessening the diameter, of course, the circumference will be lessened. And so it would mean that if previously your heart was pumping, let's say at 120 systolic, then you lessen the diameter, and by so doing, you lessen its circumference. It means it has to pump more. It has to pump more and harder. And so it will have to increase its pressure. It goes up to 140, it goes up to 160. So that means your heart has to, the muscles of the heart that has to pump out, yeah, through the, let's say through the aorta, yeah, it has to get more strength for it. And that is why the heart can continue struggling to pump out due to the pressure, due to the high pressure, because it needs a lot of power to pump and pump and pump and pump. So it gets to a point, if it is within the heart, it suffers a cardiac arrest, yeah, and then it just gives up at one point, or it suffers what we call a glitch in terms of the muscle. The heart muscle should never stop pumping. The heart muscle is one of the muscles that should never stop pumping. It can fail to, you can fail to have some other going on, but do not fail. Yeah, do not fail. Do not fail the heart muscles cannot fail, especially for the left ventricle. Yeah, for the left ventricle. Left ventricle is very crucial. It has to pump for the entire body. The other side is not too much anyway. If it comes through the auricle, maybe say the auricle will not need to pump a lot compared to the ventricle. Yes, but it is very important to understand that if it is going to pump, it needs to pump it well. Yeah, it needs to pump it pretty well. So when you have overlying fat, that is cholesterol, that is within or around surrounding the heart region, close to where the heart is. Yourself, how should I put it? Imagine yourself trying to move or trying to walk. Then you have someone holding you by your coat or by your blouse. Yeah. He's just holding you. He's not doing anything. He's just holding you. And so you have to walk. Yeah. Normally, without someone holding you, you will walk not using too much of energy. But so imagine someone comes and just gets a hold of you. That means you have to use more energy to, number one, not only drag yourself out, but also drag them with you as you walk. So that happens with the heart when there's a lot of overlying fat around it. So the heart can pump by itself normally, can pump and pump and pump and pump, yeah? But you have overlying fat around it. It means it has to generate more energy for the force of the pump to also cater the weight of the fat around it, yeah? To cater the weight the weight of the fat around it. Alongside that, because the volume of the blood that is coming in should be maintained. It means it must create more pressure to also allow that volume of blood to go to all the parts of the body. That's another thing. So that means in itself, it's like double tragedy, and that is why if we are not careful, you'll find so many of us are suffering this condition, but we've just not come to the threshold where it becomes an issue for us. You'll find that most of us who have been measured, myself, I've measured myself a number of times. Yeah, you should come to a point where you understand how your body works. Let's say in your glucose levels, in your fat levels, in your pressure levels, you should know how your system is. In other words, when you go to the machine, if something is not normal, you should know that this is not normal. But some of us, our normal is already not normal. When they go for measurements, someone just gets to already 160. Then you see, they say they themselves now they tell the person measuring them, yeah, it has always been there. It has just been there. So the new normal is the abnormal for a person who is normal. So you can imagine if for them normal is 160, high to them. What is high to them? So it's getting to 200. So already 160 is high blood pressure. That's hypertensive. Yes. But that they do not know. They say it has just been ranging 150, 160, 150, 160. And these have met people whom myself have shared with, and they have said it has never gone below 150. It has never gone. It is just 154, 150, 160. Yeah. So if it goes too low, it is 150. And I'm like, do you think that is the normal for you? Say, me, I don't know. So I was just told that if I maintain it there and I not allow it to go to 180, I'm safe. But truly, 160 is not normal. Yeah, it's not normal. So it has to go down and down and down and down, and you have to get to a point where you now understand that this is not only tampering with my system, but I can best also reverse it, and that is the object of studies and teachings. And one quote we find in the book BL Writing says, educate, educate, educate. I think we mentioned that in our first slide. And it is important to educate, educate, and educate. Education, in a sense that we just don't assume ourselves that we are learning, but we make sure that there's an impact out of it. You would rather assimilate, take in very little, but assimilate the whole of it, than take in too much and assimilate very little. Yes. Yes. So in terms of proportions there, things must balance. Yes. And that is why people who are obese mean a lot comes in, but a lot is made of non-use. A lot is redundant, a lot is rendered useless, and then the body has to work with it somehow. Yeah. And so it has to go into the fat deposit tissue. So then someone increases in weight. And these ratios are there so much, of course, in the Western world. And this one, it's the reality. You compare the lifestyle of Africa to the Western world. I mean, it's just different. It's very different. Yeah, it's very different. Because the realities that we have, is that the basic in terms of subsistence for Africans is mostly on greens and all this that we have here as wholesome foods and foods that are coming directly from the farm. And what we have in the Western world is mostly processed and supplements in foods and every other thing. Yeah. So they have that too much in their diet. But Africans, and they want to come and tamper even with the African diet. And by bringing us seeds and through the cereals boards and making it accessible through even the 1 acre farm, and allowing the natives, the knowledge that was there natively in Africa is disappearing. But that is what was helping. Africans to live longer. And one of the presidents which we had here in Africa, Magufuli, the Tanzanian president, knew that pretty much. Yeah, things that were helping Africans much more so. Even without the doctors coming in, Africans were surviving without doctors, and it was rare. You could hear deaths very rarely. It was rare. I mean, it was just unheard of. Yes, and if death was to be had, it was to take it was to like almost 10 years back then. And recently, of course, the end of the 20th century, we had deaths were occurring, let's say once in 2 years or yearly. It was not that much frequent, and if you hear it, people would seriously mourn. But nowadays, people are dying within the hour. I mean, you hear someone this side it was disease, it was cancer, the other on that side this one. If like right now people are dying out of disease more than even just old age, accidents, and things that you'd think are not, are unavoidable for man. That is the thing. But death is part of our lifestyle. It's part of our lifestyle. You just hear this one died, this one died, this one died, this one died. And we now need to get to a point where we can avert the best we can. Yes, we can avert the best we can. Now, let's go to the next slide. Next slide. Herein we have what causes hypertension. So that's a question, yeah. And down there, of course, you say lifestyle habits 90%, and truly 90% is lifestyle habits, yeah. The 10% is part of what we'll see it later, but 90% habits, lifestyle habits. The next slide. Okay, now, yeah. So you click in there, you find number one, we have obesity, yeah. Number two, we have high salt intake. And then number three, we have insulin resistance. We have still, of course, other causes. But to me, this one is very important, and I singled them out because the other causes which are down in the other slide is most of us will say not all of us have a share in them. Yeah, don't take part in them. But for this one, obesity, yeah, you're clogging your system internally. In other words, you're increasing a threshold for more. You're creating more room where no room was supposed to be created for the fats and all those things that. Then you are lessening the action of the nerves and the vessels in terms of its reach, because when I said earlier that the vessels are extensions of the heart, yeah, the same way nerves are extensions for the brain. So here you have your vessels grow also. They grow to regions where you need to get to. You get to. That is why also getting to the fat is very tough and very hard. But as long as you can get to a point where you can get to band, you can extend your veins can extend to a particular point. You work. That's why it's easy to work with the muscles and grow even the muscle. Yeah, because the veins can easily be accessible in there. But for the fats clog these things, even in terms of growth. Yeah, even in terms of growth, the way the strands of the brain grow, bit by bit, every memory generating and doing what they grow bit by bit. It's the same way the vessels should grow and extend. But due to such, especially for obesity, the obese people, they get even to a point, even the bones themselves, the bone mass cannot in proportion hold the weight of the body. Yeah. And they suffer a lot, actually. Pain comes in even through the bones. And this one also has an effect to the blood pressure. Number two is high salt intake. And that one I'm going to measure to mention clearly. Actually, high salt intake tampers a lot with the blood pressure. Yes, with the blood pressure, and this is mainly with the imbalance of the. I had mentioned of the of the cell. We have the two minerals highly for the cell: potassium and sodium. And the high intake of sodium in every case. So yesterday it was not just about the sugar also, but also about the salt. High levels of sodium, the sodium increases the turgidity of the cell membrane. And remember the cytoplasm that is inside the cell, because you must have a balance between the potassium and the sodium. And normally the threshold of sodium, yes, should be less compared to that of potassium. So that means that potassium should take a higher ground. Let's say close to 8 times or 10 times that of sodium. But when you have sodium increasingly taking that higher propensity in terms of threshold, then it suffers. A lot of other systems suffer, of course, but highly the blood suffers. Yes. And this also in turn makes sure, number one, pancreas suffers. Number two, liver suffers. Number three, kidney suffers. Yes. So those three things also suffer. That is why number three in one of the causes of hypertension is insulin resistance. Insulin resistance. And this is because, of course, we said with high amounts of glucose or sugar, whichever case it would be, because someone cannot really take natural sugar in high amounts. Too much of it, even naturally, when you take natural sugar, you will find that your body will not take it in naturally. Yeah. Take it, a good example is honey. You say you want to take honey. Too much of it, even the Bible says you will vomit. Yeah, you will vomit. Another example is sugarcane. Try and eat 10, 10 stalks of sugarcane. See what will happen. The body itself will tell you this is enough. The body itself will tell you this is enough. So, but we find ourselves taking very high amounts of sugar in some other little kinds of foodstuffs. We don't know that we're taking that amount of sugar. And so it causes our body to release high amounts of insulin per unit time to just take care of the glucose. And in turn, it causes insulin resistance. And also, so that also in turn causes hypertension. So to me, that is very important. But you can now go into the other causes that is in there. You can go into the other causes that is in there. The next slide. In the next slide now, we have yes, just go the next slide. We have, of course, I've said obesity. I will mention high salt intake. We have smoking. Smoking increases hypertension. Alcohol and caffeine, that also increases it. Physical inactivity increases hypertension. Then we have stress down there. Just click it again. We have stress. Stress also increases physical, hypertension. Yeah. So majorly, these are the things that one has to take keen note. You have to really note these things because you might not understand the effect that these things have, especially for the Western culture. Down there on alcohol and caffeine, this is really part of their lifestyle. I just realized that averagely for an American, wine and talk of alcohol generally. These people must take alcohol, even if it is in small quantities, but they really must take alcohol. And also here, when I've seen this, of course, coming here in Kenya, I've come to realize that many people have now begun this lifestyle. In as much as it can be classy, in a sense, in terms of lifestyle, you go into a bar or a pub, or could be conferences where alcohol is served, and it seems so. It's as though it's benign in nature, I should say. Yeah, benign. It does not really affect as much as you look at it. Yeah, and the same happens, of course, with caffeine, which is in coffee. So that one, not many I've seen that are the way I've seen, not many are aware of the effects that it has, especially with coffee. Someone will say, oh yes, coffee boosts my focus, my attention that much. Yes, it does so because it stimulates. Yeah, coffee stimulates, and coffee is also very addictive. Close to tea. Coffee, tea, very addictive. Very addictive. Those things are very addictive, and for us to come to a point where you must teach yourself, the hard process of growth is not learning. Learning is not the hard process. Learning is the hard process of growth is the part of unlearning. Yes, unlearning something. Unlearning is the hardest part, because for you to learn something truly, it means that you have to come to a point where your brain has to do away with something which it initially knew or thought to be true. In other words, because that is how you've taught your brain. You've taught your brain that tea to me is all I need. You understand? Coffee to me is all I need. And your brain has subconsciously accepted it, that it has to be part of the system. So any point where you might be passing through where you see there's tea needed, there's coffee around, your brain will automatically want it. because that's what you've taught. Yeah, and that's why I say the kids who have been brought up or rather grown with in environments where they have not tasted either tea, coffee, sugars, and these things that you talk about, they don't struggle that much, I should say. But we who have already developed taste towards them, and our mouths and our brain in turn have acclimatized to such, then we need more strength from God to get to a point where we say, this one I will do away with, this one I will do away with, this one I will do away with this one. Yeah, and that's why it's important to teach and educate. Yeah, it's important to teach and educate. Otherwise, we'll have to suffer a lot. We'll have to suffer a lot. Yes. Now let's go down. The next slide. Now here we have almost everyone who has high blood pressure gets it because of the way they live. And by so I mean 90%. Of course, we say 90% is the threshold in terms of lifestyle. So that's right. Yeah, what we eat, how heavy we are, if we smoke and drink, what we think about, all can make the blood pressure go up, literally. And it can even happen very intermittently. Yeah, intermittently here I mean that you can have spikes of pressure without your notice, with regards to what has triggered it. Yes, so you might not be measuring, yes, but it gets to a point where maybe say out of due to smoking, due to drinking alcohol, or even due to stress, your pressure spikes, and you think, due to this panic, I can still take it down. No, it happens even without you recognizing it or knowing. Yes, and that is why it's also called silent killer. Let's go to the next slide. Yes, now here in the next slide we have many people get high blood pressure because they weigh too much. Yeah, when the body is very big and heavy, the heart has to pump much harder to keep the blood moving. Because, by the way, the life current is in the blood. That is why the heart in itself has to adjust, because it knows the moment the blood does not get going, you won't survive. Yeah, so that's natural. It has to adjust to it. It has to adjust to it. What happens to your system is the blood has to get to every part of the body. So the what has to adjust to it is the heart, and that's the unfortunate part, because if you suffer too much, the muscles need pumping in, pumping in, pumping in, and it comes to a point with a slight trigger, it suffers an arrest, it suffers a stroke or something. Secondly, down there we have in the middle, smoking is very bad for pressure. Every time a person smokes, the blood pressure goes up. That's another thing. Yes, smoking, and as much as also that thing works to stimulate in itself, it's very bad for the blood. Very bad for with the blood. Thirdly, down there we have alcohol can also make the blood pressure go up. This may even may happen even when a person drinks only a little bit, and that's why I've said it is so benign, for lack of a better term. Subtle. It should be subtle. Subtle is the best term actually there. Yes, subtle. This happens so subtly. Its effect is so subtle that you will not think yourself suffering from this thing. In itself, you will not think yourself suffering from this thing. Okay, let's go to the next slide and then see. Next slide. So someone will ask, yes, about coffee. Truly, yeah, this one can cause, it causes spikes, because this one also increases the of course glucose levels, and of course stimulation. Yeah, that makes the blood pressure go up. Down there we have sometimes pregnant women also can get high blood pressure. That is true. Many times they don't feel sick at all, but when the blood pressure gets very high, they might start feeling, number one, weak, too dizzy, and also they can get a headache. Yeah. In addition, the legs can swell up and may stop seeing well. This is very dangerous for the mother and of course the baby also. This can be triggered, of course. Much of what I've seen, especially the diabetes and high blood pressure, I've seen it being triggered by either what the mother is using in terms of drugs, in terms of drugs, that one can spike, or in terms of stress, but majorly, of course, due to drugs. And this one also tampers a lot with hormones. And for women, I don't know. I presume in terms of handling hormones, for women, I would really advise, because women are teaching the body. Do you know in your body, there's a mechanism of learning that your body familiarizes itself or acclimatizes itself to. One is with your cells. It happens, yeah. So for white blood cells to know that some particular aspect of bacteria is not good for the body, they have to be taught. So when they are released, let's say the B1, the B and the T cells, yeah, they go for teaching in the bone marrow. And then the bone marrow now teaches and tells them, this one, when you don't see this one, as long as it has these features, that is a bad bacteria, you have to kill it. Yeah? And they kill it by dying with that bacteria. If not, that means they have to be overwhelmed. So naturally, it occurs also with the system of the woman. And not that much with the man, I should say, but of course it also happens with the man in a sense, but mostly with the woman. And with the woman, it comes with hormones, and that is why you have seen a great shift, of course, with the mentality of women, even nowadays. Because what happens is, it is taught by the brain. So women will have to come to a point where they think, because hormonally, what is affecting the woman or the mother will affect the child. Hormonally, I should say. Yes, hormonally, I should say. So what happens here is, and that's why you find tendencies that the mother exhibited will be exhibited in the child. So if the mother tampered, number one, let's say through her periods, tampered with the hormones, progesterone and estrogen, yes, either through family planning, either through those injections and HRT, hormone therapy replacement, I don't know, some other aspects of tampering with the hormones of the system. These things pass to the child. That's why the tendency of having kids nowadays who are born with bipolar, who are born with extreme conditions or predispositions towards allergies, kids who are born with reverse hormone balance. In this case, you find more children who are born, who are male, exhibit or manifest tendencies that are mostly seen in women or in females. And females who are born exhibit or manifest tendencies which are mostly seen in men. Yeah. So you find a man is so timid, a man who is very withdrawn, a man who is very shy, a man who is. These men are there. Men who cannot overly exhibit traits of a man that a man should have, or the traits that a child who is a female should have. And that is why when children are growing, it is very important. It is very important that mothers and fathers should be both there. But now look at what is happening in the West. What is happening there is, out of divorce, you find a mother is just bringing up the child by themselves. In itself, it's not good. And I will advise, if there is any in your family where you have a single mother bringing up a child by themselves, there has to be a male figure. It can be an uncle, it can be mostly uncles, of course, but in the extended family, if you have some male figure who can be a father to your child, make sure your child visits with that male figure, if there is no male figure. And then if you're a man and you don't have that, there's no mother, make sure that your child visits with a mother figure in your family. This one will prevent a lot of things, because these things, hypertension and diabetes and other conditions which we talk about here, which some people come to a point and say, it is hereditary. It is not. It is not. It's just that the lifestyle is the same. Now, what is being taught through the genes pass through from the mother to the child. Yes. So even statistically, it has been proven. Statistically, it has been proven that single mothers bringing up boys without the voice of a man in the house, the man will grow, yes, but will not be man enough, I should say. Yes, will not be man enough. Yeah, and it is because of you look at how the mind has been taught. The mind of the woman has been taught, beginning from ancient times. During the time of Israel, a harlot, a harlot in her dress, yes, a harlot in her dress was more decent than the decent woman in the age of today. You look at the story of Tamar, yeah. Look at the story of Tamar. You look at that she was covering herself totally and only leaving some bits of herself to be seen. And growing in years coming later, the women were dressing very decently, and because this was affecting their physics, their physiology and anatomy, yeah? Because when you continue in a particular lifestyle, you teach your system, even your genes pick up those particular tiny bits of details. That is the point. That is the point. And this one affects everything that passes through your genes. Yeah. That is why nowadays a woman can really literally just wear a miniskirt and see nothing wrong with it. That would not have happened 40 years ago. In as much as even that 40 years ago, most of the men were even close to walking naked. You not be walking with anything. But it was not that much of a problem. In terms of decency and morality, they knew that the woman was to be covered enough. We have some societies where women are just naturally, in a sense, due to the culture, predisposed. Yeah, when you go to the Indian culture, their waist is mostly exposed. From the waist downwards, it's covered, and the waist upwards out because of the breast, it must also be covered. In a sense, other cultures have the upper body not covered, but they have beards and everything, beads that is, and everything covering, like the Maasais. Yeah, there's particular cultures that predispose in terms of nature, yeah, in a particular sense, and the outdoing of these things through teaching. You are teaching your body. You are teaching your body how to deal with it. You teach it that it needs more sugar, it will demand more sugar. Yes, it will demand more sugar. So what I'm saying is the predispositions that we have in our bodies, that is what we end up taking. That is what we end up taking. And it is very unfortunate because right now, especially for the women, I really hope the women can see the need in this, because a lot revolves around the woman. A lot revolves around the woman. And if the woman is not careful to take care of herself, physically, that is, physically, because she will just say, I'm just having, it's just a small condition. It's not a big problem. You are affecting even your child. Yeah, if you're going to have your child and your child will begin experiencing anxiety disorders, depression and some other things, you think this is just an in and of themselves very independent to the child. It's not independent to the child. It's codependent also to you as a parent. You look at your predispositions, especially in your youth life. How did you live in your youth life? Because these things come later in life and are exhibited elsewhere in a particular manner. Yeah, but only that you might not know. Yes. So part of which, when you talk of diabetes here, talk of high blood pressure here, they not only affect in and of themselves the way we have mentioned, like blood pressure only deals with the blood, and diabetes deals with also, of course, the blood, but sugar, glucose, and fat. They just don't affect those particular parts that you mentioned. No, they affect the kidney, they affect the pancreas, they affect the lungs, they affect the liver, they affect the colon, they affect the stomach. So the entirety of another life that is growing in your system, in your womb, the uterus, affected by every decision that you make, especially as a mother. Especially as a mother. It is so unfortunate because I've come to a point where I've seen, especially mothers who have been obese or overweight, they have had difficulties in terms of pushing the baby. Some have had difficulties in terms of pushing the baby. They cannot call into action the muscles, the action of the muscles in terms of pushing. Of course, when they go into the maternity ward, the doctors will have to measure them, um, uh, check their centimeters of the opening of the vagina and see the cervix, is it okay that they can deliver naturally. Say, yeah, if it is possible, they see that it's possible, then you deliver. But I've come to a point where I've seen some even go voluntary C-section, cesarean, CS. They go for voluntary. They just sign in. They just sign in. They say, if I can't, let me just sign in directly, immediately. And then they sign in and they are cut once, twice. And the third time, that's it. The doctor will tell you, if you conceive, you won't give birth naturally and we cannot cut you again. So you'll have to abort. Yeah, you'll have to abort. Then some have gone to a point where they have been directly cut in the opening. But in that opening, they cut the upper part, they cut the lower part to allow the child come out. Yeah, to allow the child come out. So the effect of, say, something like high blood pressure, someone would see it's not too much. The effect of something like obesity, someone would say it's not too much. The effect of something like stress, someone would say there's nothing with it. Yeah? In a sense, not really. And especially with mothers, it's very important because mothers suffer a lot, women suffer a lot. They go through, let's say, stress, just mentally. Stress comes even through their bodies. Their muscles has stress. Their systems have stress. So all these things, we collectively, you have them, and then pressure spikes, and then it affects every other system that works in the body, every other system, yeah, that is there in the body. So that is very crucial. That is very crucial to understand. And this generation is not taught well, has not been taught well. We have not been made aware to a great extent that we need to be, to come to a point to understand that, number one, if you're a man and you are here, this is very important. Go and teach your sister, your mother, your wife, your daughters. You must teach them. And if you're a mother and you are here, you have to teach your daughters. If you're a lady and you are here, teach your friends. It is very important because I cannot claim how many times I've come across women who have had these conditions. Recently, I've been in a high school for a club meeting, an Adventist high school club meeting, yes, and women have had pressures in there. Young ladies suffering pressure. It's young ladies suffering arthritis. Young ladies suffering hormonal imbalance. Someone is bleeding for a whole 3 weeks. Or if the bleed is so severe, and it's very unfortunate in a sense, and things are correlational. And we have another generation that is so very ignorant to the kind of conditions that the young generation is having, and in so doing, they themselves, of course, the older generation suffer a fair share of their own conditions. The younger generation is also suffering a whole unique sort of pressures and conditions which are causing too much of stress and pain and heartache. And us approaching it in a better way, seeing how best we can educate, to teach that simple things that appear so simple and trivial are not really as such. They are very crucial. They are very crucial. So it's important to understand, and especially things to do with blood pressure. I've said, and I'll say it again. It is very subtle. It is very subtle. Subtle mean it is very undetectable. Undetectable. You cannot feel it. You cannot be aware of it much sooner. Is the point. Now let's go to the next slide. The next slide. We see. So here we talk of symptoms of very high blood pressure. Yes. symptoms of a very high blood pressure. We have headache, we have weakness and dizziness. This one, mostly it can be exhibited by also mothers. Mothers have this, especially the two. Yeah, especially the two. And you'll find that she can walk slightly and then gets to a point where she feels headache or dizziness. And then she just, mothers let loose in a sense. That is why you find most of them even, they might not want to walk a lot, they might not want to do a lot. They just want to sit there. And in that sitting, they nibble and nibble and nibble. By nibbling, I mean they eat, snack a lot. So they crave something and they want to eat this, they want to eat that, they want to eat this and that. So that also causes this pressure to spike. That also causes the pressure to spike. And that affects not only their mother, but also affects the child. And the kind of propensities that the mother exhibits during pregnancy is also carried to the child. The child, will find they grow and they want to eat a lot. They crave for a lot of food, yeah, to a particular point where they right now, because I'm seeing what is happening even in our churches and in places where I've gone. We have kids who have a lot of weight. They are young kids. They are young kids. I'm not saying kids should have very little weight, no, but they're having they are heavy. They are heavy. And you find they have conditions, allergies, because they're used to taking yogurts, they're used to taking biscuits, they're used to taking these things, and that's how they've been taught to grow. Yeah. So with them, they're going to suffer at a very early age, like compared to our mothers and our fathers who only grew up with sweet potatoes and githeri and you know foods that were very wholesome and greens, a lot of it. So with them, they are going to suffer. If our grown up, our fathers and mothers are going to suffer, they will suffer at a later age. Yeah, it's because these things have been introduced to them to their system later, not when they were young. But when they were young, they were having very little disease. And if at all disease would come, they would find a way naturally. You'd find your grandmother would just go into the shamba there, get some herbs and comes and you drink and then you're okay. You're good. Yeah. But naturally, that's not happening. With some slight headache, it's a Panadol. Sonamoja, yeah. A painkiller. With some slight something, go to the pharmacist, go to the chemist, take this, take that, take this, take that. So, and also in the young generation, we are trying to, run from that which is affecting. Yeah? So someone they know they have a particular condition, they want to very fast fix, a very quick fix. So we go for injections, we go for those drugs that we have and all those. Yeah. Then thirdly, we have heart beating of the heart. Then fourth, we have blood fuzzy vision. It's part of another symptom, which one can exhibit. Of course, this might come due to some other causes in there. So the next slide. So what does it do really to the body? Here in the next slide. Question we're asking is what does it do to the body? Yeah. So we can go to the next slide. Number one, we said we have heart failure and heart attacks. Heart failure and heart attacks. We have blindness. So you can see blindness can come both due to diabetes and hypertension, and these two are very codependent in a negative way. They are very codependent, of course, in a negative way. In that, when you have one, you have a very high likelihood to have the other, which is now if you have diabetes, you'll have hypertension. And then we have stroke, that is paralysis and even death. Most often it happens, it paralyzes one part of the body. So if it tampers with the left brain, you'll be paralyzed in the right side of your body. If it tampers with the right brain, the right hemisphere of your brain, it will paralyze the left side of your body. Then kidney failure. This one is very common. Some are in processes of dialysis, and they go for it weekly. And so that they can enable both the blood and the kidney to work well. Really, so there's just a lot. Especially these organs for the body are very crucial, very important. Then the next slide.
The next slide. So question is, what can we do to treat it? What can we treat it really? Of course, now the question will be number one. Some will think drugs really cure, but do they really cure? That is the question. Yeah. Some will think that drugs cure, but the true question is, do they really cure? Down there we ask another question: do we have alternatives to it? Yeah, are there alternatives to it? If we have alternatives to it, then the better. And those are what we might have to look into it now very quickly. The next slide. So firstly, reduce weight. Get to optimum. So get your BMI, that's the body mass index. Measure it by yourself. Don't just go and get your weight, go get your height. Measure yourself, yes, and look at where you are. I said it should range between 18 to 24. 18 to 24, that is a good range. When you're in there, you're safe. Past 24, you're overweight. Past 30, you're obese. Secondly, reduce your salt. Yeah, reduce your salt. Yeah, and this is very important. So we want to look in terms of contrast. The next slide. In terms of contrast, look at this next slide. Yes, we have table salt increases the threshold of sodium in the cell by 25%. In itself is not good. So this one also spikes not only pressure but ulcers. Ulcers also goes up, and diabetes also because the cell becomes too much in need. Now you look at this contrast. Yeah, table salt increases the threshold by 25%, but processed foods and these things that you go and buy from companies that bring talk of biscuits, talk of soft drinks, Coca-Cola, things, mention them. They increase the salt by 75%. By 75%. Yeah, 75%. So, in other words, table salt is even better. You say table salt is bad, yes, but table salt is even better compared to these foods that you get, snacks and all those things that you talk of, yeah, because it increases the threshold of sodium. Instead of this, you get rock salt or sea salt. That can best balance the mineral for the cell. Yes, so that is very important. The next slide. The next slide we have, of course, you'll have to stop smoking. Stop smoking. That is very true. It's very true. So you have to stop smoking. Fourthly, we have avoid caffeine and alcohol. Avoid caffeine and alcohol. That is very true. If you have been taking any kind of alcohol, avoid it. Someone will think that directly taking alcohol is the only way alcohol now gets to affect you. Not really. One who takes tea and in there has yeast and a lot of sugar. Let's say you have very little, mildly, you now form ethanol. That is CHOH. Yeah, you now have formation of that in the stomach, but very mildly. In other words, you still have traces of ethanol, which is alcohol, because of the sugar, the yeast, and then you have the sugar and yeast actually in itself, and mix it with any kind of food. Formation of alcohol comes in pretty fast. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide now here, reduce on fat intake. Fat intake, reduce. Actually, not even reduce. Do away with that, I should say. Do away with that. Only that when you're working with salt and fat, I should tell people, fat you can reduce, you can totally do away with, but salt, do not get to a point where some will say that do not use salt. Some will say do not use salt. No, salt is very important. You need salt in your body. Balance it. What I'm saying is balance it. If you have to cook with it, just get rock salt, put it in food, use that as good amounts anyway, but not too much of it. So some, even after food being cooked, they have to put too much of salt in the table. That's another problem. So next slide. So yes, reduce fats. The next slide here. This is a way of reducing belly fat. For those who can see clearly on the screen. Get hot water. Apart from taking a lot of lemon water, I'll tell you of another process of reducing fat, but this is good for the belly fat. Dip the towel in hot water, wring it using the ends, and then wrap it around your abdomen. Yeah, close to just below your thorax. Wrap it around there, and you can also cover it with a dry towel. Also, so when you put your hot towel, you now use another dry towel to enable heat come in. To enable heat come in. With that, also you have to do a process which is called hot foot bath. Hot foot bath for hypertensive and even diabetics is very important. Hot foot bath it's very good. Aside from hot foot bath, something else that I didn't include here for the ways that you can handle is take garlic onion drinks. You can blend, you can grate, but make sure you put just a glass of warm water and then drink it like that. Yeah. 2 cloves of garlic, one medium-sized onion. Grate them, or you can pound them. Pounding them activates them better. You just get a mortar and a pestle, pound them, pound them, pound them, pound them into when it's in paste form. And now mix it in water and then drink it. Yes, drink it. Garlic has a very high threshold of relieving and removing excess fat that is within your blood vessels. And also for those who have thicker blood, now that means that the heart now has to also pump more. You can do cayenne. Just take teaspoon flat of cayenne, put it in warm water. Don't put it in hot. Yeah, cayenne itself, if you put it in warm water, it will make the warm water very hot. Yes, then just drink it like that. So cayenne is also good because it not only has effects for the stomach, but also directly goes to the blood, and it thins the blood. If your blood was thick, it becomes thinner. So that's why cayenne is very important also. So my cue, we have said cayenne, and cayenne is not only good for the blood, but also good for ulcers. Those who have ulcers, cayenne is good. It might burn, but it's good. Garlic, onion, and when you're using garlic, make sure you use with onion because garlic is very acidic. It burns. Also, garlic burns. Actually, garlic burns more than cayenne. Only that cayenne is hot. It's hot, but garlic burns in itself. If you take it just without, if you take it without the onion, put it even in your skin and cover it, you'll find it begins burning. Yes. And then I've said hot foot bath. So you take your feet, put it in hot water, in a bucket, as hot as you can withstand. A good threshold between warm and hot, so in there. And then you take a cold towel, put it on your face, in your head, and then you cover yourself with a huge blanket that can retain the heat inside there. So you're trying to increase convectional current for the blood. As it heats up, the hot blood goes up, the cold one comes down. It goes that for like 30 minutes, 1 hour. If you can get 1 hour better, it does that, increases that, and it burns the fat that is in there. That is best used for hypertensive. For diabetics, I would not advise, if you do not know how to handle them, I would not advise that you go directly for the hot foot bath. But if you go for the hot foot bath, let it not be too hot because with them they respond very slowly. So you can begin either with a salt glow as you go for the hot foot bath, yeah, or a massage with some cayenne. So you take some cayenne, put it Vaseline or olive oil, massage them, wipe them with soap so that it might not be too much hot for the skin, and then let them now do the hot foot bath. Let them now do the hot foot bath. Yes. Then the next slide. So we've said, yes, I've seen the hand. Just a minute. Yes, so we've said low salt, low fat, high fiber. High fiber I didn't mention. That is very important. High fiber is very important. It's also good. Normally, of course, foods that have high fiber best for you. Yes, just click on.
Okay, I was asking this
Yes,
when you are explaining about the hot bath for hypertension. I didn't get quite clearly of what you said about the cold towel in the head. Is it put under the head or the front head? the
Okay,
front
yes.
part of the head.
Yes, just above your eyebrows. Just above your eyebrows, can go up part into the middle of the head. But that would mean now you have a mid-sized towel. So that means for a hot foot bath, you have the hot water and you have a basin with cold water. The hot water basin, you put your feet in there. You put your feet in there, as hot as you can withstand. Yes, it should be as hot as possible. Not too much hot that you want to burn the patient, but one that if you are the one putting your hand in there, you can count up to 10 seconds without being burnt. Yes, but it's not warm. It's not be warm because you need the effect. You need to open, number one, the pores, and the patient has to sweat. So it is also through the sweat that the body can now know that some effect has already taken place. Yeah. So you take the cold towel, put it on your head after around 3-4 minutes down when you've begun. So this is what you do. Let me just repeat for purposes of clarity. Yes. Take hot water, put it in a basin, mix it with some bit of cold water. Let the patient stand in the basin. Pull the seat close to the basin. It should be a bucket, not even a basin, because the water must come close to the knee area. The knee area. It must come close to the knee area. So a bucket is better. Then you can begin with water that is close to past half, close to 3/4. So if you are to measure it in thirds, it should be 2/3 of the basin, close to a quarter to 3/4, yes. And then let the patient stand in there. Then cover the patient with a duvet. If you get a duvet, it's good. A big blanket, it's good. Cover them up to the neck region and down past the basin, down so that no air can come in, pretty much. And while you are doing this, you are doing it in an enclosed region, but not too much of cold air coming in. Yes. And then you have the patient, you put the chair close to where the patient was standing inside the bucket. You help them sit on that chair while you prepare your basin with cold water. After 3-4 minutes down the line, you take your towel, your mid-sized towel, put it in the cold water, wring it, and then you wipe the head and the face. But if it is a woman who has hair on her head, you can wipe the entire face. That is from this side from the left ear up to the right ear and down, even slide past the chin, coming to the neck. You wipe it with the cold, and then you now again put the towel back into the cold water and wring it. But this time you don't drip all the water. So you just bring it to a point where the water is not dripping, but there's still some water in the towel. Then you now unravel it slightly into half maybe, and then put it on there, on the head, yes, just above the eyebrows, and going mid-size, the head going backward, yeah. So you now put it on that area. Then you take some warm water that is a side close to you. Take some warm water and you can have the patient drinking. If you cannot help them drink, you can put a straw so that they can drink it by themselves. And then when the water after close to 7-8 minutes is getting warmer, you boil another water. So that means you must have a source of water for hot water. Either it should be a kettle or you have some other means of hot water, fine. So after 7-8 minutes, it will be warmer. You add hot water in that because when you are beginning, the body might not have acclimatized to the temperature, the high temperature. But after 7-8 minutes, the water will have reduced in temperature. And even if you add hot water, the body now can withstand a higher threshold of hot water, of heat in the water. That means you have to maintain high heat in the water for maximum effect of the hot foot. And that you can do for a period of 2 weeks, and the pressure will be very, very stable. Very stable. Of course, that you do together with dietotherapy. And aside from that, this process of hot foot bath, you do it in the night. It is good, preferable in the night. You do it in the night. And it is so easy because the only thing you need is some bit of blanket, basins, bucket, and just water. Yeah. So you do that in the night. The patient, after 30 minutes for an adult, for a child is half, which is, you don't do it for a pregnant woman, a pregnant mother, you don't do it. You You eat in the night, of course, I said. After the meal, let the person eat by 7, they have eaten. 8, you are doing the hot food bath. By 6, the 6, for those who don't take 2 meals, but if you're taking 2 meals, by 5, you've eaten. And then 7:30, you're doing the hot food bath. 30 minutes, you are done. You make 1 cup of porridge. After the hot food bath, they take the porridge, and then they go and they shower with some warm water, a different kind of warm water, not the one they were using. Let them shower with that, and then just come and sleep. Just come and sleep. Someone who's suffering from malaria can do that. Someone who's suffering from insomnia, let them do hot food bath. Someone who's suffering from pneumonia, let them do that. Someone who's suffering from bronchitis, let them do that. Someone suffering from asthma, someone suffering from allergies, let them do hot food bath. It is very, very, very effective. Very effective. So that means while the patient is undergoing the treatment, they must be drinking water because they are going to be dehydrated. And then you must engage the patient. If the patient is diabetic, those patients of diabetes must be engaged, because with them, because they are using a lot of energy, they can even collapse while the treatment is going on. So that's why I said, for a diabetic patient, you must be very keen to note. Okay, let's go down. We're remaining with around 4 or 5 slides to just finish.
Thank you for that.
Yes, yeah, you're welcome. Yes, so you also have to increase physical exercise, especially for mothers. If you're pregnant or expectant, please, set a mass for you to jog like other people. And this is where now Indians surpass Africans and the West. Yeah, when you go to Uhuru Park here in Nairobi, you will come to find that the Americans are running. Yes, and the Africans are also running. They're also running, but the Indians are brisk walking. They are walking in a very fast pace, and they're walking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They're not running, but they're also not just walking. The way I said yesterday, there's easy walking, there's normal walking, and there's brisk walking. But for a mother, you don't need to brisk walk. Aside. A mother, if you're expectant, just walk, stroll enough that when you come and sit down, you can feel the heaviness. Yeah. But if naturally you're used to exercises, you can do sprints, you can do jogs. Those are very important. But you can also go brisk walk at a stationary point. That is also okay. The next slide. Next slide here we have reduce stress. Get to the next slide. So in stress it can be manifested in 3. Yeah, we have tension, we have stress, we have depression. That is very important. But more often, tension can be suffered by anyone. Yes, tension is there. It can come in form of stresses. Of course, we have acute and we have severe. Acute stress is like that for those who are students and they have to sit for an exam. They suffer some stress. It comes very acutely. It's very But when the exam is done, they're back to normal. So that is somewhat like an acute stress. Yeah. Then we have severe stress. People who have suffered maybe trauma, psychological, emotional, and they have to handle a lot. Maybe say the mother has been there dealing with the husband, dealing with the kid, dealing with what. So you find that this mother has to handle a lot, and then they have to suffer very severe stress. So that is part of it. And then depression, mostly females suffer stress, men suffer depression. Yeah. Depression comes because the lack of channeling on what appears as stress or what appears as heavy in terms of psychologically or emotionally. Yeah. So most men who suffer depression, some even higher. We have higher thresholds in terms of statistics of suicides from men than women. And then because when men snap, they just snap. Then stress, women can have stress for a very long time. And this is one of the things that cause high blood pressure for them and other conditions like diabetes, especially mothers. Mothers really, if you have a mother at home, if you can relieve some stress for them, you do so. Yeah. if you can take them into nature, let them meditate, take them into nature for repose, for calm, for quietness. If you have a mother and or just a lady close by, yeah, you do so. Do that for them. And if you are a man, if you have a man around you, affirm them, affirm their activities. As long as they're doing the right thing, be there for them. Give them more courage. Men only need more courage and more faith and more strength. They don't need a lot of pampering, a lot of no. They don't need that. If a man has to do something, you just tell them, yes, you can do it. Yeah, you believe in them, you trust in them. That is enough. And if they had any depressions or anything, it can come out of overthinking. Yeah, if they were having some doubts in there, they now have someone who can affirm them. Yeah, and as long as it's the right direction, it's the easy way. It's the easy way to go. But for women, they need attention slightly, so you can find a way where you can now move them from that environment. They have someone whom they can think on and talk to, mainly talk to. Also, next slide. As we come to the close. So here, the question we ask are tranquilizers the answer, especially to stress, tension, depression. So these tranquilizers come to suppress stress hormones and all those things, just to try and balance it. But it is a wrong way to work it out. So finally, the last slide, which is the real solution here. The last slide, which the real solution says, that we have to trust in God. We have to trust in God. I do say that a true Christian should not suffer stress, really. Yeah. And that is why you come to church. Even going to church, you find that people go to church even on Sabbaths, and they are very gloomy. They are very pressed on their minds. They are very thoughtful. In itself, coming to church, you should just be joyful, whether the circumstance was good or bad. That is why the Bible uses joy, happiness. Yeah, happiness is circumstantial. Yes, happiness is the opposite of sad. So it is a mood, but something that overpowers happiness or surpasses happiness is joyfulness. Be joyful. Be joyful. Joyful means things might not be going in your direction, but you still find a reason to be happy. You still find a reason to be happy. That is where the trust in God comes in, and it's the eighth law in the laws of health. Yeah, it's the eighth law. So you have to find reasons beyond yourself, knowing that He who has held your hand is there with you. This is very important. It's very important. It's very important to understand. Yeah, you holding the hand of God, you might get tired. Just ask God to take a hold of your hand. Then He will not leave you. He cannot let go of you. However much you go, the Bible says in Psalms 23, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort. It's a fact. It's a fact. It's true. It's true. So this life has that. But then our trust in God surpasses everything. Surpasses everything, whether it is stress or there's depression, there's disease. And there's a direct correlation. I told you there's a direct correlation between health and your spiritual life. Yes. So work to trust more God. He's the great physician. He can work out anything. Yeah, even the conditions that are there prevailing in the home, that He can work it out. So this is part of how best you can go and teach people in their families, staying with them for a